Ask anyone at the drones, and they'll tell you that Bertram Wooster is a fellow whom it is dash difficult to deceive. Old lynx eye is about what it amounts to. I observe and deduce. I weigh the evidence and draw my conclusion. And that's why my Uncle George hadn't been in my midst for more than about 10 minutes before I, so to speak, saw all. To my trained eye, the thing stuck out a mile. And yet it seems so dashed absurd. Consider the facts, if you know what I mean. Well, I mean to say, for years, right back to the time when I first went to school, this bulging relative has been one of the recognized eyesores of London. He was fat then, and day by day and everywhere has been getting fatter ever since, till now tailors measure him just for the sake of the exercise. He's what they call a prominent London clubman, you know, one of those birds in tight morning coats and grey toppers whom you see toddling along St. James Street on fine afternoons, puffing a bit as they make the grade. The last bloke in the world, in short, whom you would think would ever fall a victim to the divine pash. And yet, if you'll believe me, that was absolutely the strength of it. This old pestilence blew in on me one morning at about the hour of the after-breakfast cigarette.
Oh, Bertie.
Hello?
You know those ties you've been wearing? Where'd you get them?
Bluchers in Burlington Arcade.
Thank you.
He walked across to the mirror and stood in front of it, gazing at himself in an earnest manner. Smut on your nose?
Oh, no.
I suddenly perceived that he was wearing a sort of horrible simper, and I confess it chilled the blood to no little extent. Uncle George with face in repose is hard enough on the eye. Simpering, he goes right about the odds.
I'm not so old.
So old as what?
Properly considered, I'm in my prime. Besides, what a young and inexperienced girl needs is a man of weight and years to lead on. The sturdy oak, not the sapling.
Great Scott, Uncle George. You aren't thinking of getting married?
Yes, I am, why not?
Oh, well...
Marriage is an honourable state.
Oh, absolutely.
Make a better man of you, Bertie.
Who says so?
I say so. Marriage might turn you from a frivolous young scallywag into a non-scallywag. Confound you, I am thinking of getting married, and if Agatha comes sticking her oar in, I shall know what to do about it.
He exited on the big line, and I rang the bell for Jeeves.
Sir?
You know my Uncle George?
Yes, sir. His lordship has been familiar to me for some years.
No, I don't mean do you know my Uncle George. I mean, do you know what my Uncle George is thinking of doing?
Contracting a matrimonial alliance, sir.
Good Lord. Did he tell you?
No, sir. Oddly enough, I chanced to be acquainted with the other party in the matter.
The girl?
The young person, yes, sir. Huh? It was from her aunt, with whom she resides, that I received the information that his lordship was contemplating matrimony.
Who is she?
Miss Platt, sir. Miss Rhoda Platt, of Wisteria Lodge, Kitchener Road, East Dulwich.
Young?
Yes, sir.
The old fathead.
Yes, sir. The expression is one which I would, of course, not have ventured to employ myself, but I confess to thinking his lordship somewhat ill-advised. One must remember, however, that it is not unusual to find gentlemen of a certain age yielding to what might be described as a sentimental urge. Why this should be so, I am at a loss to say, but...
I gather that Miss Platt is not of the noblesse.
No, sir. She is a waitress in his lordship's club.
My God! The proletariat!
The lower middle classes, sir.
Well, yes, by stretching it a bit, perhaps. Still, you know what I mean.
Yes, sir.
Rummy thing, Jeeves, this modern tendency to marry waitresses. If you remember, before he settled down, young Bingo Little was repeatedly trying to do it.
Yes, sir.
Odd.
Yes, sir.
So, there is, of course. The point to be considered now is, what will Aunt Agatha do about this? You know her, Jeeves. She's not like me. I'm broad-minded. If Uncle George wants to marry a waitress, well, let him say aye. I hold that the rank is but the penny stamp.
A guinea stamp,
Oh,
sir.
right, guinea stamp, okay. I don't believe there is such a thing. Well, the rank is but the guinea stamp, and a girl's a girl for all that.
For that, sir, the poet Burns wrote in the North British dialect.
That then, if you prefer it.
I have no preference in the matter, sir. It's simply that the poet Burns...
Well, never mind about the poet Burns.
No, sir.
Forget the poet Burns.
Very good, sir.
Well, what we have to consider is not the poet Burns, but the Aunt Agatha. She'll kick Jeeves.
Very probably, sir.
And what's worse, she'll lug me into the mess. There's only one thing to be done. pack the toothbrush and let's escape while we may, leaving no address.
Very good, sir.
Ah, probably Uncle George back again. I'll answer it. You go and get ahead with the packing.
Very good, sir.
Oh, hello, Aunt Agatha.
I wish to speak to you, Bertie. I'm greatly upset. Your Uncle George called on me while I was still in bed to inform me of his intention of marrying some impossible girl from South Norwood.
East Dulwich, the cognoscent informed me.
Well, East Dulwich, then it's the same thing. But who told you?
Jeeves.
And how, pray, does Jeeves come to know all about it?
There are very few things in this world, Aunt Agatha, that Jeeves doesn't know all about. He's met the girl.
Who is she?
One of the waitresses at the Buffers.
Oh!
I take it from your manner, Aunt Agatha, that you want this thing stopped?
Of course, it must be stopped.
Then there's but one policy to pursue. Let me ring for Jeeves and ask his advice.
Are you seriously suggesting that we should discuss this intimate family matter with your manservant?
Absolutely. Jeeves will find the way.
I have always known that you were an imbecile, Bertie, but I did suppose that you had some proper feeling, some pride, some respect for your position.
Well, you know what the poet Burns says.
Obviously, the only thing to do is to offer this girl money.
Money?
Certainly. It will not be the first time your uncle has made such a course necessary.
We sat for a bit brooding. The family always sits brooding when the subject of Uncle George's early romance comes up. I was too young to be actually in on it at the time, but I've had the details frequently from many sources, including Uncle George. Let him get even the slightest bit pickled, and he'll tell you the whole story, sometimes twice in an evening. It was the barmaid at the Criterion, just before he came into the title. Her name was Maudie, and he loved her dearly, but the family would have none of it. They dug down into the sock and paid her off. Just one of those human interest stories, if you know what I mean.
We must give her some money.
Well, just as you like, of course, but you're taking an awful chance. I mean, whenever people do it in novels and plays, they always get the dickens of a welt. The girl gets the sympathy of the audience every time. If I were you, I just sit tight and let nature take its course.
I don't understand you.
Well, consider for a moment what Uncle George looks like. I should simply let the girl go on looking at him. Take it from me, Aunt Agatha. This girl sees him at meal times, and Uncle George with his head down amongst the foodstuffs is a spectacle which I...
If it is not troubling you too much, Bertie, I should be greatly obliged if you would stop drivelling.
Oh, just as you say. All the same, I think you're going to find it dashed embarrassing offering this girl money.
I am not proposing to do so. You will undertake the negotiations.
Me?
Certainly. I should think £100 would be ample, but I will give you a blank cheque. The essential point is that, cost what it may, your uncle must be released from this entanglement.
So you're going to shove this off onto me?
Well, it's quite time you did something for the family. You can get down to East Dulwich in half an hour. I will remain here to await your report.
But listen...
Bertie, you will go and see this woman immediately.
Yes, but dash it.
Bertie!
Oh, right-ho, if you say so.
I do say so.
Oh, well, in that case, right-ho. Barring a dentist's waiting room, which it rather resembles, there isn't anything that quells the spirit much more than one of those suburban parlours. They're extremely apt to have stuffed birds in glass cases standing about on small tables, and if there is one thing which gives the man of sensibility that sinking feeling, it's the cold, accusing eye of a ptarmigan, or whatever it may be, that has had its interior organs removed and sawdust substituted. There were 3 cases in the parlour at Wisteria Lodge, so that wherever you looked, you were sure to connect.
Oh, so there you are at last.
Since it could hardly be the girl, I took her to be the aunt. Oh, what ho! Good morning.
I don't think you'd better see my niece just yet. She's just having a nap.
Oh, well, in that case...
Seems a pity to wake her, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
When you get the influenza, you don't sleep at night, and then if you doze off in the morning, well, it seems a pity to wake someone, doesn't it?
Yeah, Miss Platt has influenza?
Well, that's what we think it is, but of course you'll be able to say. But we needn't waste time. Since you're here, you can be taking a look at my knee.
Your knee? I'm all for knees at their proper time, and as you might say, in their proper place, but somehow this didn't seem the moment.
What do you think of that knee?
She lifted the 7 veils, and, well, of course, one has to be polite. terrific.
You wouldn't believe how it hurts me sometimes.
Really?
A sort of shooting pain. It just comes and goes. And I'll tell you a funny thing.
Oh, what's that?
Lately I've been having the same pain just here at the end of the spine.
You don't mean it?
Oh, I do. Like red-hot needles. Oh, I wish you'd have a look at it.
At your spine?
Yes.
Now, nobody is fonder of a bit of fun than myself, and I'm all for bohemian camaraderie and making a party go and all that. But there is a line, and we Woosters know when to draw it. Can't be done. Not spines. Knees, yes. Spines, no.
Well, you're a funny sort of doctor, I must say.
Doctor? Did you think I was a doctor?
Aren't you a doctor?
No, not a doctor.
Well, that's the best thing. Did you ever? But if you aren't the doctor, who are you?
Wooster's the name. I came to see Miss Platt.
What about?
Somehow I couldn't make it. You know how it is. Oh, I just came to see her, you know. My uncle heard she was seedy, don't you know, and asked me to look in and make inquiries.
Your uncle?
Yes, Lord Yaxley.
Oh, so you're Lord Yaxley's nephew?
That's right, yes. I suppose he's always popping in and out here, what?
Oh, no, I've never met him. Rhoda talks a lot about him, of course, but for some reason she's never so much as asked him to look in for a cup of tea.
I began to see that this Rhoda knew her business. If I'd been a girl with someone wanting to marry me and knew that there was an exhibit like this aunt hanging around the home, heart of gold beyond doubt, but not the sort of thing you wanted to spring on Romeo before the time was ripe.
Of course, nothing is definitely settled yet.
You don't mean that? I thought...
Oh, no, she's thinking it over.
Oh, I see.
Of course, a title is a title.
Yes, there's that. Well, what do you think about it yourself?
Oh, it doesn't matter what I think. There's no doing anything with girls these days, is there?
Not much. Well, I'll be tooling off then.
Oh, if you must.
I think I'd better.
Oh, well, all right then. Pip, pip.
Toodaloo.
Well?
Well, yes and no.
What do you mean? Did she refuse the money?
Not exactly.
But she accepted it.
Well, then again, not precisely. I explained what had happened. I wasn't expecting her to be any too frightfully pleased, but it's just as well that I wasn't, because she wasn't.
Oh!
Sir?
Yes, Jeeves?
I thought you called, sir.
No, Jeeves.
Very good, sir.
Now, seeing Jeeves standing there with the light of intelligence simply fizzing in every feature, I suddenly felt how perfectly footling it was to give this preeminent source of balm and comfort the go-by, simply because Aunt Agatha had prejudices against discussing family affairs with the staff. I decided to do as we ought to have done right from the start. Jeeves, this matter of Uncle George...
Yes, sir?
You know the circs.
Yes, sir.
You know what we want.
Yes, sir.
Then advise us and make it snappy. Think on your feet.
Bertie!
Jeeves.
I understand that you've been visiting the young person's home, sir.
Yes, just got back.
Then you no doubt encountered the young person's aunt.
Jeeves, I encountered nothing else but.
I would recommend that you confronted his lordship with this woman. It has always been her intention to continue residing with her niece after the latter's marriage. Should he meet her, this reflection might give his lordship pause.
Jeeves, you're right. Apart from anything else, that orange hair.
Precisely, sir.
I'll ask her round to lunch tomorrow to meet him. You see, Aunt Agatha, a ripe suggestion first crack out of the box. Did I or did I not tell you?
That will do, Jeeves.
Very good, madam.
Bertie, you will go and see this girl again tomorrow. And this time you will do as I told you.
But dash it, with this excellent alternative scheme based firmly on the psychology of the individual...
That is quite enough, Bertie. You heard what I said. I am going. Goodbye.
She buzzed off, little knowing of what stuff Bertram Wooster was made. Jeeves?
Sir?
Jeeves, the recent aunt will have none of your excellent alternative scheme, but nonetheless I propose to go through with it unswervingly. I consider it a ball of fire. Can you get hold of that female and bring her here for lunch tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Good. Meanwhile, I'll be phoning Uncle George. We will do Aunt Agatha good despite herself. What is it the poet says, Jeeves?
The poet Burns, sir?
No, not the poet Burns. Some other poet, the other chap. About doing good by stealth.
These little acts of unremembered kindness.
That's it in a nutshell, Jeeves. Uncle George by himself is a mouldy enough luncheon companion, being extremely apt to collar the conversation and confine it to a description of his symptoms. He being one of those birds who can never be brought to believe that the general public isn't agog to hear all about the lining of his stomach. Add the aunt, and you have a little gathering which might well dismay the stoutest.
I can readily imagine that this will prove something of an ordeal, sir.
How did you get to know these people, Jeeves?
It was through a young fellow of my acquaintance, sir, Colonel Mannering Smith's personal gentleman's gentleman. He and the young person had an understanding at the time.
They were engaged?
Not precisely engaged, sir, an understanding.
What did they quarrel about?
They didn't quarrel, sir. When his lordship began to pay his addresses, the young person, naturally flattered, began to waver between love and ambition.
Ah. Then if your scheme works and Uncle George edges out, it'll do your pal a bit of good.
Yes, sir. Smethurst would consider it a consummation devoutly to be wished.
Rather well put, that, Jeeves. Your own?
No, sir.
I braced myself to play the host. The binge was on.
Mrs. Wilberforce, sir.
Oh, and am I to keep a straight face with you standing behind and saying, Madam, can I tempt you with a potato? Is more than I know. I know him, you know. He's been round and taken tea with us.
So he told me.
Oh, you've got a nice place here. Though I like more pink about. It's so cheerful. What's that you got there? Cocktails?
Martini with a spot of absinthe.
Oh, don't you try to make me drink that stuff. Do you know what would happen if I touched one of those things? I'd be racked with pain. What they do to the lining of your stomach.
Oh, I don't know.
I do. If you'd been a barmaid as long as I was, you'd know too.
Oh, were you a barmaid?
For years, when I was younger than I am, at the Criterion. There you are, you see? That's through drinking that stuff. It makes your hand wobble. What I always used to say to the boys was, port if you like. Port's wholesome. I appreciate a drop of port myself. But these newfangled messes from America, no. But they would never listen to me.
I was eyeing her warily. Of course, there must have been thousands of barmaids at the Criterion in its time, but still... when you were at the Cry, did you ever happen to run into a fellow of my name?
I've forgotten what it is. I'm always silly about names.
Worcester.
Worcester? When you were there yesterday, I thought you said Foster. Worcester? Did I run into a fella named Worcester? Well, why, George Worcester and me, Piggy I used to call him, were going off to the registrars, only his family heard of it and interfered. Oh, they offered me such a lot of money to give him up, and like a silly girl I let them persuade me. If I've wondered once what became of him, I've wondered 1,000 times. Is he a relation of yours?
Excuse me, I just want to word with Jeeves. Jeeves?
Sir?
Do you know what's happened?
No, sir.
Yeah, this female...
Sir?
She's Uncle George's barmaid.
Sir?
Oh, dash it, you must have heard of Uncle George's barmaid. You know all the family history.
Ah, yes, sir.
She's the only woman he ever loved. He's told me so 1,000,000 times. Every time he gets to the fourth whiskey and potash, he always becomes maudling about this female. What a dash bit of bad luck. The first thing we know, the call of the past will be echoing in his heart. I can feel it, Jeeves. She's just his sort. The first thing she did when she came in was to start talking about the lining of her stomach. You see the hideous significance of that, Jeeves? The lining of his stomach is Uncle George's favourite topic of conversation. This woman, he will be like...
Deep calling to deep, sir?
Exactly.
Most disturbing, sir.
Well, what's to be done?
I couldn't say, sir.
Well, I'll phone him and say the lunch is off.
Scarcely feasible, sir. I fancy that is his lordship at the door now.
Jeeves let him in, and I followed him as he navigated down the passage to the sitting room. There was a stunned silence as he went in, and then...
Piggy!
Morty!
Oh, well, I never!
Well, I'm dashed.
Did you ever?
Bless my soul.
Oh, fancy you being Lord Yaxley.
Came into the title soon after we parted.
Just to think.
Yeah, you could have knocked me down with a feather. Morty, You don't look a day older, Dashie.
Oh, nor do you, Piggy.
How have you been all these years?
Oh, pretty well, Piggy. The lining of my stomach isn't all it should be.
Good gad, you don't say so. I have trouble with the lining of my stomach.
It's a sort of heavy feeling after meals.
Yes, I get a sort of heavy feeling after meals. What are you trying for it?
Well, I've been taking Perkins Digestine.
My dear girl, no use. No use at all. I've tried it myself for years and got no relief. Now, if you really want something that is some good, I'll tell you. It's absolutely marvellous stuff. Feel free to take.
Jeeves,
Sir?
there'll only be two for lunch. Count me out. If they notice I'm not there, tell them I was called away by an urgent phone message. You'll find me at the drones.
Very good, sir.
It was latish in the evening when one of the waiters came to me as I was playing a distrait game of snooker pool and informed me that Aunt Agatha was on the phone.
Bertie?
Hello?
Bertie, have you that cheque I gave you?
Yes.
Then tear it up. It will not be needed.
Eh?
I said will not be needed. Your uncle has been speaking to me on the telephone. He is not going to marry that girl.
Not?
No. Apparently he's been thinking it over and sees how unsuitable it would have been. But what is astonishing is that he is going to be married.
He is?
Yes, to an old friend of his, a Mrs. Wilberforce. A woman of a sensible age, he gave me to understand. I wonder which Wilberforces that would be. There are two main branches of the family, the Essex Wilberforces and the Cumberland Wilberforces. I believe there is also a cadet branch somewhere in Shropshire.
And another in East Dulwich.
What did you say?
Nothing. Well, Jeeves, I gather everything is nicely settled.
Yes, sir. His lordship formally announced the engagement between the sweet and the cheese courses, sir.
Oh, he did he?
Yes, sir.
You don't appear to be aware of it, Jeeves, but this binge has depreciated your stock very considerably. I've always been accustomed to look upon you as a counsellor without equal. I have, so to speak, hung upon your lips. And now see what you've done. All this is the direct consequence of your scheme based on the psychology of the individual. I should have thought, Jeeves, that knowing the woman, meeting her socially, as you might say, over the afternoon cup of tea, you might have ascertained that she was Uncle George's barmaid.
I did, sir.
What?
I was aware of the fact, sir.
Then you must have known what would happen if she came to lunch and met him.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm dashed.
If I might explain, sir, the young Smethurst, who is greatly attached to the young person, is an intimate friend of mine. There will now be no obstacle to their union.
I see. Little acts of unremembered kindness, what?
Precisely, sir.
And how about Uncle George? You've landed him pretty nicely in the cart.
No, sir, if I may take the liberty of opposing your view, I fancy that Mrs. Wilberforce should make an ideal mate for his lordship. If there was a defect in his lordship's mode of life, it was that he was a little unduly attached to the pleasures of the table.
It's like a pig, you mean?
I would not have ventured to put it in quite that way, sir, but the expression does meet the facts of the case. He was also inclined to drink rather more than his medical adviser would have approved of. Elderly bachelors who are wealthy and without occupation tend somewhat frequently to fall into this error, sir. The future Lady Yaxley will check this. Indeed, I overheard her ladyship saying as much as I brought in the fish. She was commenting on a certain puffiness of the face which had been absent in his lordship's appearance in the earlier days of their acquaintanceship, and she observed that his lordship needed looking after. I fancy, sir, that you will find the union will turn out to be an extremely satisfactory one.
It was, what's the word I want? It was plausible, of course, but still I shook the onion.
Sir?
But Jeeves, she is, as you remarked not long ago, definitely of the people.
Sturdy, lower, middle-class stock, sir. Sir?
I said, Jeeves.
Besides, sir, remember what the poet Tennyson said. Kind hearts are more than coronets.
And which one of us is going to tell Aunt Agatha that?
If I might make the suggestion, sir, I would advise that we omitted to communicate with Mrs. Spencer Gregson in any way. I have your suitcase practically packed.
Ah.
It would be a matter of a few minutes to bring the car round from the garage.
And off over the horizon to where men are men, eh?
Precisely, sir.
Jeeves, I'm not sure that even now I can altogether see eye to eye with you regarding your recent activities. However, with the latest suggestion, you have rung the bell. I'll get the car out at once.
Very good, sir.
Oh, and remember what the poet Shakespeare said, Jeeves?
What was that, sir?
Exit hurriedly, pursued by a bear.